"230 years ago, on their way to war, foot soldiers of the Lancashire Fusiliers plucked wild roses from the wayside and wore them into action. They won an historic victory. The Lancashire Fusiliers, in name, are no more. They were one of 4 disbanded regiments reborn as the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. But their traditions and rich heritage of bravery live on. This is the Minden Rose, floating for the moment in champagne, but soon to disappear in a manner not approved of in fashionable restaurants. But then, tradition is precisely what fashion isn't. At Minden in 1759, the Lancashire Fusiliers engaged in one of the most remarkable actions in all warfare. On foot, they charged a force of 10,000 French cavalry and broke and beat them.
Gentlemen, your good health.
We will now rise and drink in solemn silence to those who fell at Minden.
It's just like eating a mouthful of cream crackers, but trying to swallow and you can't swallow, you go through the actions of swallowing and it just will not go down.
I actually cheated slightly, and then I still had half a rose left in my mouth at the end of it.
Well done. Well done.
You're not a member of the club until you've eaten the rose. So it joins you together into a brotherhood of officers inside that one battalion.
Well, just very much on the surface to the outsider, it looks simply a ceremony, a bit of pomp, a bit of style, and nothing else. But to actually be a fully fledged member of the battalion, to eat the rose, which commemorates a great battle honour that the battalion won, is extremely important, especially to a young subaltern.
Tradition is an absolute foundation of the British Army, and it's upon that which we build, and we will maintain the tradition, and it will be maintained.
Well done.
For the next 209 years, the Lancashire Fusiliers, garrisoned here in Bury, were to fight on, accumulating battle honours like the vivid Primrose Hackle for conspicuous bravery in the Boer War. Ironically, it was peace, not war, that did for them. Amalgamation in 1968 beneath the red and white hackle of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. Officially, the Primrose Hackle is now redundant, though not to a defiant few, especially on Gallipoli Day.
Well, it's always made me very proud to be a soldier to start off with, and to be a member, which in my opinion, and a lot of other opinions, is the finest regiment in the British Army. And the greatest disaster was when the government, with their fancy ideas, started the amalgamation.
Amalgamation, an economic fact of life. But there are those who still see it as betrayal.
I won't wear the red and white. There's one day of the year when they expect us to wear the red and white one. Just for one day only. That's on the Association Day in September. But what we do, well, some of us do, we just don't bother. Just go on without a hat, or without a hat.
The Lancashire Fusiliers, Now 2 fading colours in a parish church laid up on a St George's Day.
That was a rather sad day because that Yellow Hackle had been in so many great conflicts, so many great battles. It meant so much to the men of the Lancashire Fusiliers. Perhaps, you know, as much as home means to them in one sense, so their membership of the regiment was just like being part of a family. And I felt they were a little bit worried that they were going out as second-class citizens into another regiment. But they certainly got a good telling off from the pulpit that they were going out with all the glory and honour of the Primrose and Yellow Hackle, and hold your head high, and the other people should be grateful that they've been able to join you.
And on the day these colours were laid up in this church, our regimental church for many years, I've never seen quite so many grown men crying in this church as I've ever seen anywhere.
There is more to it than sheer nostalgia or pride. It is as though the dead have been posthumously deprived. "74 years beyond Gallipoli, where they won 6 VCs before breakfast, 3 Lancashire Fusiliers still survive to recall its horror. And these old warriors are 2 of them.
When I've seen the bodies going up in the air, that appalled me to see so many dead bodies, you know, unburied, lying on the tummies. I think if they can get the true facts of the war, well, there'll be no more wars at all. If they can get the really true fact, because there should be no wars at all.
The sun used to sink down in the sea, and I used to think, oh my goodness, shall I ever get back to England?
On this day, they exercised their freedom of the city to march, bayonets fixed, beneath the bloodiest battle honour of them all. Honouring the dead is an act of reconciliation. It transcends the regimental rivalries. They now march as one behind a common mascot, Bobby the Buck Antelope. The day has no message beyond remembering the dead. Bury has a socialist mayor, Mrs. Jackie Adler, but there are to be no strident messages about the futility of war. The mayor, in fact, is visibly moved.
It was magnificent. It really was fabulous. I feel really dead proud. I think the actual occasion itself has got to be above politics, because in all honesty, these men gave their lives for us. And because I don't really know about the war, I wasn't there in the war, then what can I do to thank them? And this is the only way I can show, and I think this council can show, that yes, we do appreciate that some people did die for us here in this town and for me to enable me to be born. I've always thought tradition's important. It's part of what our foundations are built on. And without our foundations, if we didn't have traditions, I think our society would really crumble. I think when it gets bad, we fall back on our traditions. So yes, I think traditions are very important. I shed a few tears. I shed a few tears, one for the actually Gallipoli men that walked past. They took part in the march past, and they must be 90, in the 90s easily, these men. And to see 3 men in the 90s taking the march past, well, I'm afraid it just choked me up.
Aged almost 7, Bobby the Buck mascot has yet to buckle down to military discipline.
If I'm in the pen and I clean him out, if I don't hear him, he sort of comes in, creeps up, and he sticks the horns in you. Well, it rips clothes and what have you, in jumpers. Quite regular. Quite normally get stuck in the leg and blood running down the leg. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't part with him.
Yeah.
Not for anything. I'd never see how it happened to him. There's nothing that can't be done for him. Everybody will bend over backwards to help or make sure that Bobby's all right.
Bending over backwards, or frontwards for that matter, can be unwise in Bobby's presence. His understandable aversion to intruding television crews is obvious.
Find yourself. Go on. Come on.
The Lancashire Fusiliers once had a mascot so celebrated that a generation later her story was revived, Minnie the Mule.
In March 1944, the 1st Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers were part of General Lord Wingate's 2nd Chindit expedition. And one of the roadblocks established across the Japanese lines of communication was called White City. During a Japanese attack on this roadblock, one of the animals that was carrying mortar ammunition for the 1st Battalion gave birth quite unexpectedly to a foal. Clearly not the most opportune time to be born. She had a great effect on the morale of the troops, and during lulls in the fighting in the White City roadblock, the troops would drift down to wherever Minnie happened to be, obviously her mother and the mortar post, feed her cups of tea and hardtack biscuits. It even got to the stage that brigade headquarters were issuing daily bulletins on the state of Minnie's health in routine orders. Eventually, the time came, because of the great Japanese pressure on the roadblock, for us to evacuate it. And Minnie was too weak to walk, at least any distance. And I suppose it's the British sentiment for animals.
What happened next must have convinced the Japs they had no chance of winning.
Rather than just disposing of it, I think might have happened in many other armies, the whole of 77 Brigade mounted an attack to clear the Japanese off an airstrip so that a plane could come in and take Minnie, and also, to be fair, some of our wounded as well, out. But there were great sighs of relief amongst the battalion when Minnie was flown out, back to the rear party in India, and proper veterinary attention. She went round the world with the regiment, and in fact finally died in Egypt in 1951.
And so, 74 years on, the fallen of one of war's most awful battles are still honoured. Tradition defies amalgamation and will continue to do so. There are other traditions too which apparently still stir the blood.